My part-time service in the Army National Guard makes it possible for me to be more for the community I call home. I'm a better neighbor because my service has taught me how important it is to be a team player. My training helps me in my classes when I give attention to detail to the task at hand. My service in the Army National Guard allows me to keep my country safe from threats. Learn more about how you too can live and serve part-time by visiting NationalGuard.com.
Sponsored by the Montana Army National Guard. Aired by the Montana Broadcasters Association at this station.
This is time scale. Each year, nearly 2 million children die from preventable diseases. Each day, 30,000 people die from hunger. 500 each hour for children. The Oregon Project is turning this around. We need your help. To learn more, go to OregonProject.org. ORGEN.
KKVU Sportsville and 102.9 FM on 275 BS Missoula. Television. I like football.
Hello, Montana. How good is North Dakota State? An overview. Trey Lance, North Dakota State quarterback, to talk to us. And Sam Herder, a North Dakota State alum who writes for Hero Sports, also to join us. It's a Bison heavy / semifinal heavy with a little bit of basketball and other stuff mixed in there version of Tootell and Nuanez. Hi, how are you? Great to be with you on this Thursday afternoon. Hope you are having a fantastic day. Thanks for letting us spend some of it with you wherever you are. We appreciate that very much. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, and online at kurtzpolaris.com. You can find us, this show, on the World Wide Web. 1029ESPN.com is where you go for that. You listen live on the Listen Live tab. It's called a stream, and it's available thanks to Opportunity Bank, your local bank. Your opportunity. If you want to pick up your phone and call, you can do just that. 329-1899, 329-1899, all guests. Join us via the Rankage Brothers RV phone line. Let's take a look at what we got in the show today. Again, we're going to talk a little bit about NDSU here to start, because everybody recognizes the juggernaut that North Dakota State is, but I don't think until you kind of dig into it a little bit, you really appreciate the size and scope of what has been built in Fargo, North Dakota, when it comes to this football team and what they've accomplished. I mean, it is second to none and unique in the history of football. I mean, it truly is. I mean, I don't know, outside of Princeton in 1907 or something, when there was all of 5 teams on the earth, but in what is now modern football, it's never been done before. Nothing like it at all. So we'll talk about that, and then try and contextualize that in the scope of what is Saturday, a semifinal for NDSU hosting Montana State. Get you set for that. Also, Trey Lance, he is the redshirt freshman quarterback of the Bison. He's going to join us right here on this show, so we will get to him as well. Going to talk a little bit more high school stuff with some of the recruits. So yesterday was the first day of the opening signing period, the de facto national signing day, as it were. And so we have a couple more to get to from yesterday into today. The top of the hour, looking forward to this. Our buddy Sam Herder from Hero Sports. He covers the FCS nationally. He's going to join us to talk both national semifinals and what he sees and where he's at, as well as Hero Sports and now Stats FCS have both released their All-American lists for the FCS. So we'll go through a couple of those as well. We'll talk a little bit of basketball with you. The Grizzlies lost last night, 81-48 at Oregon. Not all that surprising, I guess. It was actually a little bit close early, but then, what is it? NK Dante? What's his name? For Oregon, Coulter?
N'Faly Dante.
N'Faly Dante. Pardon me. N'Faly Dante. Okay. Third time's a charm. N'Faly Dante comes on. He played. Now, if you don't know who N'Faly Dante is, which clearly I don't either, he is a 5-star freshman. He's from Mali. And he had not played because they were busy getting his graduation / eligibility all sorted out for Oregon. But they got it sorted out. He made his first appearance last night. 5 stars is accurate. I would say 5 stars is accurate for N'Faly Dante. And it was, I don't know, it was, 1-2 possession game, whatever, 16-14, whatever it was. He comes on the floor, lights out. I mean, there is no chance. Jared Samuelson will someday be able to say, yep, I was the guy standing on the block when N'Faly Dante made his first bucket. Me. I mean, it's just, he's just a whole different deal. So we'll get into that. We also will give away tickets to the Grizzly home opener, which is December 28th. It's the next Saturday, home conference opener, excuse me. But how about that? We're just like over a week away, and we're right into Big Sky Conference basketball season. I love it. So we'll give away some tickets to that game as well here today. There you go. There's our show Outlook. It's brought to us by Shine Auto Detailing, shineautodetailing.net. Go on. You're going to save yourself some money. Yourself an e-gift card right now for shineautodetailing.net. Coulter, a pleasant afternoon to you, my friend.
Up, yes.
How you feeling?
Pretty fine.
Yeah? Coming back to me? Kind of poking the bear yesterday. Today? Look at you grinning.
We're just not even talking about. I was grumpy yesterday because of what National Signing Day and the opening of the early signing period and what all of it has become.
But now you're back.
And it took me all the way to the bottom of the rabbit hole thinking about the perils of society and the entitlement of children.
Can we talk about tomorrow? Isn't tomorrow a big day for you?
I don't know.
I'll ask you between the break. Tell me.
Okay. I really have no idea.
Aren't we adding to your family?
Oh, yeah. That's also something I don't want.
Okay.
Congratulations, my brother. Another son.
There you go.
Good timing. Save it for July next time. I'm just kidding, kind of.
We're very happy for the Nuanez
we are very happy.
To be
it's just so funny. It's so funny when people are asking you, like, you're going to have a new baby at Christmas. How exciting. It's like, well, it would be a lot more exciting if it was like a 7-month-old infant.
Yeah, I mean,
kids can't even see for the first 3 months.
Yeah.
It's like my buddy Jay says.
I'm aware of this deal.
Pet rock stage. But they're in.
No, there's a little more to it than that.
Sure, pet rock that screams.
That's a lot more delicate than a. Actually, the little
up for debate.
The little ones.
This is my whole thing.
The little ones don't scream.
This is my whole thing about the perils of society. We think that kids and humans aren't as tough as they actually are.
They are tough. No, you're right.
I mean, you could throw a kid in a gutter and there's a chance that it would survive.
Man, I think if you sit here and when I had my first child, you go that you wake up every 30 minutes just going, is it okay? It's like, in this completely safe covered bassinet thing, and you're like, if it rolls, I don't know what to do. It's a good thing we're in hospital. And you find out, yeah, they're pretty resilient.
I just think about all throughout the history of time, the people that have lived through nothing but death-like circumstances for their entire existence. And they made it all the way to adulthood and beyond.
Found a way. Now, what's beyond adulthood?
Well, I'm just saying, like, it was not as. I mean, there's people who lived
old age.
It lived into their 50s, 60s, and 70s with living in the worst conditions that you can imagine.
Yeah. Sure.
So I don't know. I want to return to the respect for the human spirit.
Very good.
Rather than the coddling and the fear mongering and all the crazy things that happen in American society. Let your kid walk to school. Let them ride their bike and be gone for hours at a time. It'll all be okay. I promise.
Okay.
Regardless, let's talk about NDSU.
Spoken as a true.
You want to know? You want to know who does it? You want to know who does it right?
North Dakota State.
That's right.
They don't coddle. They instruct. Is that the deal?
They have a system that they do not delineate from. I mean, we have 2 pages worth of notes of all the things that they've done, and the second page has all the guys that have gone to the NFL. And I think that the single most impressive part about North Dakota State is all the guys that haven't. It's the fact that like Robbie Grimsley was the Minnesota Player of the Year and walked into North Dakota State and started every game that he was on the roster, 60-plus games, and he did not go to the NFL. Now, that might be a slight to the scouts or whatever. What I'm saying is that the system, what it is so much bigger than the parts. And that's why when you lose Carson Wentz, it doesn't matter. When you lose Easton Stick, who plays for the San Diego Chargers now, it doesn't matter. And that's the most impressive part to me is the fact that they have, first of all, if you talk to the coaches over there, they have a player-run program. So it's not the coaches telling you this is what North Dakota State football is all about. It's the players. I think that is the most powerful form of influence in any realm of life, is influence from your peers. Being held accountable by people that you are sharing a locker room, that you are sharing a workspace with. It's just like you're always going to rebel against your parents, right? You're way less likely to rebel against the big brother who you've idolized your entire life. You want to be like him, whereas oftentimes you want to run away from the people that raise you. It's just human nature. It's just instinct, and that's why North Dakota State's so special, because I thought that when Craig Bohl left, okay, they hired Chris Kleiman. Will he be able to keep it? When they lost that 2016 game in the semifinals to James Madison, that is their one and only playoff loss in the Fargo Dome, I thought, okay, finally. I thought they'd continue to battle and be in the Final Four and win and be in contention for championship, certainly. But I did not expect them then to rally from that point forward and not lose again. Amazing that they've been able to do it. And then Kleiman leaves, and he takes all his whole staff with him, and they lose the winningest quarterback in college football history in Easton Stick. An NFL receiver in Darius Shepard. Bruce Anderson, Lance Dunn, guys I was shocked that didn't get shots in the NFL. 2 NFL offensive linemen. Robbie Grimsley, who started all those games. Greg Bernard, who's a multiple-time All-American defensive end. So then you think, okay, Matt Entz, can he actually do this? They're going to start a freshman at quarterback. They're going to have all these new stars across the board. Here they are, 14-0, number 1 seed, host to Montana State in the semifinal.
7 national titles this decade. They've won the Missouri Valley Conference every season since 2011. They have had the top offensive lineman 7 years in a row, as voted by the FCS Athletic Directors. So it's 7 consecutive years with the best player. Pretty remarkable. 27 straight at home. But you talk about 30, is it 35 in a row that they're on right now in terms of just wins? But 27 in a row at home is years and years worth of never losing in your building, and that is significant, particularly when that's a lot of playoff games in your building too. As you said, the last time they lost was that playoff
in 2016. They have not lost a home game since then.
North Dakota State is the number 1 overall seed for the FCS playoffs and hosts throughout for the 9th consecutive season.
So think about how good Montana's football is. Grizzlies have the 2nd most semifinal berths in the history of the FCS playoffs, tied with North Dakota State. Montana did that between 1989 and 2000. And I guess if you count 2011, they would have 10. But regardless, that one has been wiped out, whatever. I still count it. But that's here nor there. North Dakota State has equaled Montana in semifinal berths, but consecutive.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Do it without a break in the streak.
And if it wasn't for a back shoulder fade in the corner of the end zone in overtime against Eastern Washington in 2010, it'd be 10.
Yeah. Longest winning streak in modern football history, 35. The longest of all time, by the way, Oklahoma, 47 in a row. From 1953 to 1957.
One of the greatest books I've ever read, Undefeated, Jim Dent. It's about those Bud Wilkerson coached Oklahoma Sooners. He's talking about a different time, man. He was loading up on guys that had gotten back from World War II that then had not gone to college, so the clock hadn't started ticking. So he's using all the dudes that have like the lingering GI Bill from 5, 6, 7 years ago. So he's got guys in his mid to late 20s loading up and just rolling people.
Probably a good idea to do it that way if the opportunity presents itself. They are 6-0 against FBS teams this decade. Minnesota, Iowa, Iowa State, Kansas State all win.
They're 10-3 in their history against FBS.
And you sit here and you just go, it's sort of taken for granted because it's so expected. But also the distance that North Dakota State has been from the field in, the most highly contested collegiate sport there is. I mean, that and basketball, men's basketball maybe, but when you talk about the number of people and schools and resources that are being poured in. Look, we talk all the time about the disparity, the haves, the have-nots. We talk about, the stipend, the cost of living stipend that they have in the Missouri Valley.
Full cost of attendance.
The Big Sky does not have. And that stuff that's all. And we know the power, money, influence that there is at the FBS level and why the Blue Bloods have continued to be that and the juggernauts and so forth, although there's counterexamples to that. There's no counterexample. It's just North Dakota State all the time. And it is a remarkable thing that they have found. They don't do it the way that everybody else does it, is probably to be noted. And I think it's unique. I mean, everybody wants to figure out what the best team is doing and then do that. So why doesn't that happen? Why hasn't that been replicated and then reproduced other places? Well, it's because you can't. You can to an extent, some things, some items, and by the way, not everybody should. Like, just because somebody's over here doing this way, pull from that. But every place is unique. Everything is different. But there is something, and I don't know what it is. I don't know the answer to the question. But there's a group of factors that have come together that have allowed this to continue perpetually at North Dakota State, and it's no one thing has been consistent, with the exception of maybe like the strength coach, which is significant, and the athletic director.
It's the number one factor. The strength coach is the number one factor. We're going to get into that in a minute. A couple more ridiculous stats about NDSU before we carry on. During this 35-game winning streak, they have played 20 ranked teams, including 13 ranked in the top 10. They played 13 top 10 teams, so exactly 1/3 of their game during the 35-game win streak against top 10 teams. Average score of those games against top 10 opponents, 35-13. So they have been absolutely in control.
Yep.
Their 9 straight conference titles is the 4th most in college football history, behind only Oklahoma with 14, Montana with 12, and BYU with 10. This decade, they've won 135 games, which surpasses the 119 won by Montana last decade, the 118 won by Texas during the 2000 through 2009 stretch, and they got a chance for a couple more. They have won 126 out of their last 134 games. It's amazing. But I want to talk about all the factors, because I think that there's several different ones. We talked about the Fargo, Moorhead, metropolitan area. I think that we've seen mid-sized cities turn into small cities in largely isolated areas, like Spokane with Gonzaga basketball, and with, what was our other example the other day? Oh, with Boise State football in Boise, and the Fargo, Moorhead area. The difference between North Dakota State and those other two schools is Boise State's success started when they won the FCS national championship in the early 80s. North Dakota State's first national championship came in the early 60s. So they had an established, entrenched tradition as the city grew. And so they continued to grow. And then they win 5 national championships in the 80s as it continues to grow. So they have this hope of winning that lasts for such a long time. The other thing is the creation of the FCS, but the lack of the infiltration of the FCS into the Midwest. There's all sorts of schools in the Midwest. I mean, Minnesota Duluth, Minnesota Mankato, St. Cloud State. These schools all have the enrollments of Big Sky schools. And they did not go to the FCS. They stayed Division II. And there is no division. There's no FCS school in Wisconsin. There's no FCS school in Minnesota. There's no FCS school in Kansas. There's one FCS school in Iowa. So every FCS caliber recruit in your recruiting area, you can go get. And then you compound that with the fact that Minnesota has been bad. Now you can go clean up in the Twin Cities and in Minneapolis. So you have two different advantages that are at play there. But I have been looking for the golden carrot in this thing for so long. And when Jeff Colhane from North Dakota State, the play-by-play guy from NDSU, told us the other day that Jim Kramer has been the strength coach at NDSU since 2004. But not just the strength, that he has the final say in the recruiting of the linemen. That was the ding, ding, ding. I finally found it. Because at the FCS level, with the risk of sounding too harsh, so many of the linemen you're going to get are bad bodies. They just have bad bodies. They might have the measurables at 6'4", 6'5", 300 pounds. They don't have the physical stature and the physical makeup that Big Ten offensive linemen do. The fact that North Dakota State, when you watch their offensive line, you go find their 5th left tackle, who's a redshirt freshman. He looks the same. They all look the same. They all have low body fat, good hips. They don't run funny with their feet out like so many FCS offensive linemen. They look like true athletes. They look like centers on a basketball team more than they look like frumpy offensive linemen. You don't have guys with big guts. And that's the thing. Jeff Colhane said that Jim Kramer, he points out the high school kids he thinks he can chisel. And if you have that, then you just have an endless string. And that's been their key to success, is the fact that every other position on the field has been able to be plug and play, because you absolutely know that you have the 3 best offensive linemen in the game, and in some years, the 5 best offensive linemen.
It's a true thing what you've said, and there's no question that the positional key to all of this is the offensive. And they have carried this program in all sorts of ways. But also, I would just point out the back-to-back-to-back excellence at quarterback. And you can talk to me all day about how impacted those players are for the better because of the elite offensive lines that they play behind, and you're 100% right about it. But we also have looked from sea to shining sea and seen just as many flameouts and guys who just couldn't get it done in the moment that were supposed to be the dude that had everything that you ever wanted, and even in some cases who came on and did it for a while and then couldn't. And we all know more instances than you could even repeat right here of guys, and this is just one position, but at that spot that weren't the guy. But when you go from Carson Wentz to Easton Stick as a freshman, if I'm not mistaken, take it over, maybe a sophomore.
No, Easton Stick got his debut in
as a
Missoula,
freshman.
Montana,
That's right. And now you go in to Trey Lance, who we're going to have here in just under 10 minutes from now with us, who, as a redshirt freshman, has played 14 games, is responsible for 36 touchdowns, 25 passing, 11 rushing. He's at 3,600 total yards or something like that. And, you can get a great talent. You can get a great, guys who want to come play for you because you are North Dakota State and so forth and so on. But to just be can't miss every single time, that's remarkable. It's remarkable. And because there is such a wellspring of talent in general, I mean, the offensive line being the engine, you don't have to have your quarterback play a perfect game or even a 90% game week in and week out to win.
No, Easton Stick threw for like 75 yards.
Right. So, I mean, it doesn't have.
They rushed for 480. Because all Easton Stick had to do is turn around and hand off the ball.
But, I mean, that's the other thing is when you're that much better, there's only, I don't know, what, 2, 3, maybe 4 losable games in any given season for you?
It's not just that, though.
I mean, it's not possible that they lose over half of the games that they play every year. It's not possible.
But it's not even just that they don't lose. They literally ran the same play for a full half against Montana State. Bruce Anderson goes over 100 yards on 9 carries. Take a seat. Lance Dunster, 100 yards on 11 carries. Take a seat. Ty Brooks, 100 yards on 6 carries. Take a seat. They're running power and counter. That's it.
Yep.
Over and over and over and over and over.
Pretty remarkable. They're a very good team. That said, we wanted to spend some time because it is worth acknowledging and tipping the cap to a program that has been this good for this long. And particularly when Montana State gets another shot at them. And there's been a lot of optimism in the state about Montana State in this game, and I think with good cause. I share the optimism, frankly, for this Saturday against with Montana State against North Dakota State, because I think it's going to be, first of all, a much more competitive game than it was a year ago. Montana State has been playing the best football they've ever played under Jeff Choate this last month, and I think that they are, in a position to play a really good game on Saturday. It's also worth noting why the heavyweight champ is the heavyweight champ, and why whoever you are, why every team that plays them is always they're going in with the best team that they've ever had in a game that they have seen the elephant in a national semifinal as the 5th ranked team in the nation, and they are a 17-point dog. Okay?
Of course they are 35-13 against top 10 teams.
This is what I'm saying, though. I mean, the 17 points, if you saw a 17-point spread in a normal game, you would go, well, this team is going to blow this other team out. Like, that's not even a reasonable spread. When you see it with North Dakota State, you go, oh, hey, their opponent's getting some respect here. Because it's often a 30 or 40-point spread. Anyway, it's just worth noting. It's worth keeping it in mind what it is that you're going to see on display on Saturday, regardless of the outcome.
There's 2 interesting factors that parallel me. The Missouri Valley, the teams of repute in the Missouri Valley football, they all loaded up to beat North Dakota State the last several years. Obviously, they're all chasing the line.
Right.
But South Dakota State was not as good as they have been because they graduated the great class that included Taryn Christian, Dallas Goddard, who's now playing for the Eagles, Jake Weineke, who's now playing up in Canada. Western Illinois, nowhere close to as good. They graduated the big D tackle who went on to play for the Arizona Cardinals. They graduated a 3-year starter for John. Illinois State, even though Illinois State got to the quarters, they got there without their quarterback. They got there with James Robinson still being an underclassman at running back. That's not the best Illinois State team of the last 4 years.
Yeah.
That team went all the way to Frisco and then lost to North Dakota State in an all-Missouri Valley championship game. On down the line, Youngstown State is not as good. So there's a huge factor here where I think that Montana State's the best team that North Dakota State's played this year. They are. And North Dakota State has been hanging on. They won by 6 points last year. On the flip side, though, Montana State, let me ask you this. Who would win in a game? You watch Portland State. Yeah. Albany or Portland State?
Yeah,
it's a pretty good game,
close.
right?
Yeah.
UC Davis or Albany? UC Davis, right?
Yeah, maybe.
But we're talking about teams that from the Big Sky that finished middle of the league.
Totally.
Who would win?
Yeah.
Austin Peay or Eastern Washington?
Yeah, I mean,
really good game, right?
Yeah.
Like Eastern Washington's probably favored by a touchdown in that game. So what I'm saying is that the Montana Grizzlies are the only really elite team that Montana State has played in 7 weeks too, and you can only play who's on your schedule. But it's going to be so interesting to see which team can handle the quote-unquote shock factor of playing the best team they've played in months with each other. Obviously, the Cats have the Cat Grizzlies, so that gives them a slight edge in that element. The last point I'll make about North Dakota State, I'm straight stealing this from my brother. We just recorded a Big Sky breakdown. So you can check out our Big Sky Breakdown previewing this game and also recapping National Signing Day. SkylineSportsMT.com. It'll be up in about 5 minutes. He had such a great line. And I think that this is the number one factor why NDSU has been what they are. The thirst for winning, the demand for excellence has now been overtaken by the fear of losing. No one that's in that program wants to be the guy who let it slip. And that 2016 team that lost to James Madison, that's when all those dudes who just were fifth-year seniors were freshmen and sophomores. So they had this chance for redemption, and then they redeemed themselves
over and over again
by going back-to-back in resounding fashion. No one wants to be the one to let the standard slip, to be the one that gets knocked off and then stays knocked off. It'd be an interesting factor because if by chance the Cats win, this group does have a chance to redeem themselves too, because what happens when Trey Lance is a junior and a senior?
Sure.
Now they're back, rolling. But I think that's the number one factor is rather than the thirst for winning, it's the fear of losing. It's the fear of failure that keeps North Dakota State atop everybody else.
It's Tootell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Speaking of Trey Lance, he's going to join us right after these messages. Quarterback, redshirt freshman quarterback, an outstanding one, 14-0 in his college career. Pretty good year one for a guy. He will join us right after this. Coulter, Christmas is next week, buddy. Can't wait. People traveling all over the place. You got people coming to town. Need a place to put them. The Wingate by Wyndham is where you want them to stay, right? Easy access to the interstate, easy access to the airport, and great full breakfast, a pool with a slide for kids, great for offices, having seminars, having meetings, all that kind of stuff. Plenty of space for that. Wingate by Wyndham's got pretty much everything you need.
That's what I would be doing. If on the holidays, I want to stay up late playing board games. So you need your kids to be asleep.
Yes.
So what do? Take them to the pool during the day. You read your new Christmas book. Have them wind up and wind down on the water slides. Put them to bed at 7:30. Play board games.
There you go. I'm into that.
If you maybe want your relatives to stay somewhere else, so you let them stay at your house and you go to the Wingate by Wyndham. Or on the other side, have your relatives stay at the Wingate by Wyndham. Either way.
By the way, let him play Settlers of Catan with Coulter because he's colorblind, so he doesn't know which asset is which. It's an easy dub.
It's an easy dub
against Coulter.
And I am excellent at board games, too. I cannot win that game because I can't see the colors. Regardless, if you got people coming to town or you need to get away, let the Wingate by Wyndham make you feel at home. Right there off the airport exit, easy access to all of Missoula. The Wingate by Wyndham, let them make you feel at home even when you're not.
Hi there. It's Life Walk. Well, more like Life Walk. I'm the great on field and side. Now, entire they don't have time. And we're not cheating. Because all those stopping. That's why we offer more time to help. Not much. Life Walk. Life Walk time. Do it like that.
On Hustle, across from the fairground.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters. You may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, locally owned, knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box store. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the expert at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit 6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
Hey, it's Coulter, and I'm here with Catherine from The Advocate. If you've been in a car accident or need help dealing with the insurance companies, you should give The Advocate a call. They can tell you if you have a case right over the phone.
That's right. It doesn't cost anything to call, and we'd be happy to talk to you and assess your situation. You don't want to have to deal with contacting the insurance companies and setting up a claim. We can do that for you. We take the hassle out of the process, so you can just focus.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give The Advocate a call. 406-640-4444. Online at MontanaAdvocates.com. You deserve The Advocates.
Hey there, Colter Nuanez from your favorite daily sports talk show, Tootell Nuanez. I'm here with Tom from Aspen Sound. Tom, last winter I got a sweet car starter. It's something I think everybody needs.
You know, Colter, I couldn't agree more, and my wife sure thinks so too. We've got a lot of sweet deals. We actually have it capable now where you can start it from your phone from anywhere you'd like. We have two-way remotes that'll confirm to you the vehicle started all the way down to our basic package starting at just $299 installed. Come on in and check us out.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tootell, Colter Nuanez. Here's some sports news for you. Playing against one of the top teams in the country, the Montana Grizzlies had no answers for number 8 Oregon's length and athleticism in the 81-48 loss in Eugene last night. The Grizz forged a 12-12 tie in the first 10 minutes before giving up a 16-3 run. The Ducks scored 44 points in the second half as 5 players, including newly eligible freshman Enflay Dante, scored a double figures. And Foley Dante, excuse me. Kendall Manuel is a former Oregon State transfer. He led the Grizzlies with 15 points. Saeed Bridget had 11. He also had 8 rebounds before fouling out. UM is 4-6 heading into its final non-conference game Saturday, a matchup against Omaha.
20 Big Sky football players were named to the Hero Sports All-American team Monday, and also the Stats FCS All-American team came out. We'll give you an update on that soon. 9 of those athletes hailed from the Treasure State, 5 for the Montana Grizzlies, 4 for the Montana State Bobcats earned Hero Sports recognition. Montana senior linebacker Dante Olson and UM junior wide receiver Samari Torrey were each first-team All-American selections. Montana State junior Torrey Anderson earned first-team All-American honors as an athlete. MSU senior offensive tackle Mitch Brott, senior defensive end Bryce Sturck, and senior safety Braden Conkle each earned second-team honors, as did Montana sophomore safety Robbie Hauk. University of Montana senior Jerry Lou McGee, also an All-American.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
North Dakota State hosts Montana State Saturday at noon, Mountain Standard Time on ESPN2. Talk to the outstanding freshman quarterback for North Dakota State, Trey Lance, in just a moment. It's Tootell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. If you want to find us on social media, well, let me help you with that. At 1029 ESPN on Twitter and Instagram. You can also check us out on Twitter at Gus Tootell and at Skyline Sports MT for all the best in your Big Sky Conference sports news immediately, all the time, from Colter and the gang of Skyline Sports. Also want to remind you, about an hour from now, we're giving away tickets. The Grizzly home opener basketball game. It's Saturday evening. Home Big Sky Conference. So stick around with us for that as well. We welcome in the quarterback of the once again undefeated North Dakota State Bison, Trey Lance. Trey, thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, we're certainly happy to have you, and I would expect you are doing pretty well because you are undefeated and into the semifinals once again, hosting Montana State this week. We'll get into the game, but just the season on a whole, you were a redshirt last year. You played a couple of games, but this season taking over and being a freshman quarterback at North Dakota State, what's that experience been like for you?
It's been really exciting. I'm sure you can imagine just getting, surrounded by, these type of people that we have up here and getting to play with, I think some of the best players in all of FCS, whether it's offensively or defensively or even special teams. I think that, it's a really special place. It's been flying by. I can't believe we're already, 14 games in, but it's been a ton of fun.
Minneapolis not very far from Fargo, so when North Dakota State was first recruiting you, what did you like about the program? And when a coaching staff can come to you and say, "Hey, we've won 7 out of the last 8 national championships, so I guess at that point 6 out of the last 7, and we win the Missouri Valley Football Conference every year, and all the stuff North Dakota State's accomplished." How intriguing is that as a recruit?
Yeah, it was super exciting. I'm sure you can imagine. Just I'm from Marshall, Minnesota, so it's about 3.5 hours, southwest Minnesota. Which is also, about 40 miles from South Dakota State. So, it was a little different process for me, but just obviously just them emphasizing that, winning championships is the expectation here. It's not just something that, is a fluke when it happens or, is different when it happens. It really is the expectation. whether it's the people in the community or the athletic program as a whole. I think that's just one of the things that separated it for me. Obviously we have great community support. Bison Nation, travels really well, and just that expectation, rather than it being a rarity here, I think separates us a lot.
Trey Lance joining us. He's the quarterback in North Dakota State. North Dakota State hosting Montana State in the semifinals of the FCS playoffs. Noon on Saturday in the Mountain Time Zone, 1 o'clock local there in Fargo. And Trey, there's obviously the success is unparalleled and a ton of players, great players, lots of guys going to the NFL from North Dakota State. But how big a deal was it for you to watch Carson Wentz specifically and the progression of his career as a quarterback and what he was able to develop into from that place, and how much influence did that have on your decision making?
Yeah, it's crazy just to imagine that we've had great the last 3-4 guys that have had the opportunity to play at the next level before me. Whether it's all the way back Brock Jensen all the way from Easton last year. Obviously I'm happy where I'm at. No place I'd rather be in the world, and I think that had a lot to do with it in the recruiting process for me. Obviously, just getting to meet Easton when I'm being recruited here, just the type of person that he is and how he goes about his business, how he handles himself, not even on the field, but just the type of person he is off the field, how he treats people, whether it's just little kids or fans in the community. He's a person that I really try to follow, and I think one of the biggest role models for me at that point. And then obviously Carson, seeing what he is doing in the NFL, is obviously really exciting for everyone that followed him in college, and just getting to meet him, and again just seeing the type of person that he is off the field is huge credit to him.
So interesting looking at the quarterbacks in North Dakota State the last 10 years, because Brock Jensen was a 4-year starter and he won 45-plus games. And Wentz was actually the one that started the least because he had that injury his senior year. I know Easton took over for him. Last year when Easton led you guys to the national championship game, he became the winningest quarterback in the history of college football. Sitting behind a guy like that for a year, what did you learn just about the art of winning? Because I covered you guys 4 times last year, and there was times when maybe you didn't play your best ball, but then you'd always play your best late. And he was so good at leading you back. I mean, the national championship game itself, such a great example of that. So just the art of winning, what did you learn about that from Easton State?
Yeah, I try to take everything from Easton, whether it was stealing his notes or just, following him around in the off season. Just the type of person that he is, the confidence that he carries. When Easton's in the room, everyone knows when he's in the room. Just kind of this demeanor that he has about himself and the way he carries himself. I think that's a big part of, what we have going on here, and then obviously the culture that we have here. Whether it's Easton or, all the way back from the coaching staff, that's not here anymore. Just type of people that they are, and just the confidence that they bring, the calm confidence, the poise that they bring, whether it's just the meeting room, practice, and the same with the intensity, just the attention to detail, the intensity. I think those are the biggest things that, I noticed being around East.
Just watching your guys' program for the last 10 years, it's been interesting to watch the whole thing evolve. But when Coach Bull left for Wyoming, I think people wondered how this is the transition going to go. And Coach Kleiman comes in and does nothing but win. And now Coach Kleiman at Kansas State, he's doing a great job. But for you, a guy that came to play for a different coaching staff, but it's been similar coaches that hung around, especially with Coach Entz taking over after being the defensive coordinator. What's different about the program? What's the same about the program? And what was just you and the rest of the players' thoughts as Coach Kleiman transitioned out and Matt Entz took over as the head coach?
Yeah, I think for the most part, everything is the same. The program, the culture, Bison pride, the things that the program are really about are the same, and I don't think they will change. They haven't changed, from the guys before us, and I don't think they'll change for the guys after us. But when Coach Kleiman left, obviously, guys like me, didn't know a whole lot. Maybe just didn't have as much contact with Coach Entz, on the offensive side of the ball, just him being the defensive coordinator and everything. But absolutely just nothing but confidence in him, who he was going to find to replace, guys like Coach Ray or Coach Messingham, and, our athletic director, Mr. Matt Larson, just confidence in him. Just, again, the type of person he is. And he was one of the first people that came and addressed, the team and talked to us, just kind of gave us the rundown. So I think, the biggest thing was the transparency that, our whole athletic program shared with us as a team, when all that was going on last year. But, I really don't think, we've missed a beat. I love the new staff. It's hard to call them new staff now. It seems like they've been here for forever already, but just the energy that they bring, the experience that they have, even though they're such a young group.
Trey Lance joining us. He's the quarterback for the North Dakota State Bison. And Trey, you guys kind of had to grind out a win last week against Illinois State, but got it done 9-3. And now you go against the number 5 team in the nation, and in particularly a defense is playing at a very high level in Montana State. So when you look at this matchup from your perspective as a quarterback, what do you see?
A really talented team. I think they do their job really well. They do a really good job mixing up looks. And I guess they play really hard. They're confident defense, and I think they're playing their best football right now, so we're definitely going to have to be ready to go.
What's your evaluation of Montana State's defensive line? They were to put so much pressure on the passer last week against Austin Peay. So what do you think of that front four, and how do you think you guys match up?
Yeah, they're big up front. Absolutely explosive, talented, just a big group of guys. And I think, like I said before, they do their job really well, and they execute at a really high level. We're definitely going to have to be ready to go, up front. I know Coach Boswick will have the offensive line ready to go, but it's definitely going to be a challenge. Those are really good players.
For you in particular, too, you're such a mobile guy. You're great with your legs, 11 rushing touchdowns this year. But how big a key do you think that becomes in a game like this where, okay, maybe one thing's not working, maybe another thing isn't okay, and then you can get out and just make something positive happen, in the flow of the game with your legs?
Yeah, it's big. It's just part of my game. I think it always has been. I'm just going to try to make plays, whether it's with my arm or with my legs. Just another thing that defenses have to scheme against, prepare for, and I'm sure they will be.
It's so fascinating because you guys have had a 33-game win streak before. Now you're on a 34-game winning streak. Is there any pressure that comes associated with continuing to be undefeated? I mean, you guys have been undefeated for years now. What does it take to handle just all the things of having everybody take their best shot at you every week?
To be honest with you, it's not something that we talk about at all in the program or, guys on the team. I didn't even know, to be honest with you, that it was whatever you just said, 34. It's just not something that's talked about. We really just focus on going 1-0 every single week. So we got to get ready for Montana State, go 1-0 this week.
Well, Trey, this is we've been a fun season to watch you and the team once again, and kind of the latest iteration of North Dakota State has been fantastic. We look forward to this game on Saturday. I know it's going to be a ton of fun. Have a great game, and we appreciate the time, all right?
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much.
You bet. Thank you, Trey Lance. Fantastic. It's almost like they, give them a little direction there on some of these interviews. That was awesome, man. 18-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid going on here. That was great. Can't wait for this game, man. I'm pumped up about it. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. Hey, yesterday was the not National Signing Day. First day of the early signing period. National Signing Day will come and nothing will actually happen in February. But this was interesting, and we went through it a little bit yesterday. We'll go through it a little bit more because there's a couple new ones that we wanted to mention and tease out a little bit with. Hey, if you're a normal human, you have last-minute shopping to do, and you are freaking out because you're running out of ideas. Here is the most simple and best thing you can do. Get a gift card to Shine Auto Detailing. From hunters to sports fans to soccer moms, everyone loves a fresh ride. Right now, online, gift certificates are on sale. You save $25 on any $100 gift card. Think about that, 25% off. Do something nice for your spouse. Get them a Shine Auto Detailing gift card. They have $25. They're delivered instantly. Go to shineautodetailing.net, get a click gift card. Again, shineautodetailing.net. This offer expires at midnight on the 24th of December. You can do it all the way up there. It's immediate. It's easy. A gift card and an e-gift card from shineautodetailing.net.
More card, whatever your reason, new home, it's the right reason. It's the hardest thing to do is pre-qualify for a loan before you start looking. Farmers State Bank makes it easier than ever to start the loan process with online checklists, forms. Your dream home is out there. Get started today at Farmers Farmers under.
You know what's at stake after a car accident? Not only will you have to deal with pushy insurance companies, auto repair shops, endless doctor's appointments, and dozens of unforeseen problems, but also your normal day-to-day life. I'm Coulter here with Catherine from the Advocates Injury Attorneys, and she knows how hard this can be.
That's right. And with all of that, it can seem tempting to take the quick settlement that the insurance company is offering. But I can tell you from experience that it is not going to be a fair amount. I see it all the time where someone has settled with the insurance company and months later realizes that they still have painful taxes. And now they're having to pay those bills out of their pocket. I don't want that to happen.
What should our listeners do, Catherine?
Give us a call and discuss your situation with an attorney. The call is free and we'll gladly talk about your situation with you. If you have a case that we can help with, you will owe us nothing out of pocket. We actually make the insurance company pay for us to help.
There you have it. Call the Advocate, 406-640-4444, or go online, MontanaAdvocate.com. You deserve the advocates on your side.
Tis the season for a festive holiday feast at the Montana Club with mouth-watering dishes like our cranberry brie walnut tarts and pork Diane, or savor our Chardonnay salmon or blackened shrimp fillet. Be sure to wrap up your celebration with our decadent pecan rum raisin cake, all available for a limited time only through January 5th. See the full menu at montanaclub.com. Happy holidays from all of us at the Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Tootell on 102.9 ESPN Missoula.
There is a point at which there just is too much heat in the kitchen. We've reached that threshold. Video heater, which we have no control. Same with the air conditioner. Kicks on, kicks off at will. Remarkable deal. Tootell and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. It is time now for our Farmers State Bank Prep Extra segment. Farmers State Bank, go get a low-interest holiday loan. Farmers State Bank, have a great Christmas. Don't run up incredible debt on a high-interest credit card. Farmers State Bank. Coulter, it was the first day of the early signing period yesterday. And I wanted to talk about Montana State a little bit, just quickly, through the lens of positions. We talked about kids, individual players, particularly the state of Montana kids. But for Montana, they got 3 offensive linemen and 3 wide receivers in this class. They also, both schools, Montana and Montana State, got a transfer quarterback. But I thought that Montana was a little thin in the secondary in what they did. They got 1 cornerback and 1 safety in this class. Joe So is a cornerback from Murray, Utah. I think he's a kid that they're pretty excited about. And then Rishi Daniels from Seattle Prep, is the safety. But given the type of defense that they run and the 5-high shell, now maybe it changes. Maybe they shift into something that's more front loaded. But it's not like you can just go out, I suppose, and get 2, 3, 4, corners and 2, 3, 4 safeties in a given class, or that you would want to. But 1 each and a total of 2 is, I don't know. It seems like a position where having a couple more guys would be a good thing. Maybe not.
First of all, Bobby Houck said they're still working on paperwork for a transfer. So they're for sure bringing in a transfer. And I bet you that they bring in multiple.
Yeah. Particularly at corner, you can get transfers and maybe need to, right?
Absolutely. And so the thing about Jeff Choate talks about this all the time. The equivalency in the FCS. You have 63 scholarships that you can split 85 ways, and you can have 104 guys on your roster. very few programs actually hit all those marks every year.
Right.
They have money left over in the bank, or they don't have 85 guys getting money, or they don't have a full roster of guys. The full equivalency is a big challenge. And so when you look at the Montana Grizz roster, they have 16 seniors. But that does not mean they have 16 scholarships. And that was the biggest challenge I think that this staff went through. And I wish that we would have asked Bobby Houck that yesterday. Sort of a weird setting. We were anticipating an end-of-the-year press conference. It did not happen. There was one statement made about this last year, and that was all. And then into recruiting, and then it was a wrap in 20 minutes. But I wish we would have had a little bit more time. But I know that this senior class this year is the last class where there was some of those partial scholarship out-of-state guys or walk-on out-of-state guys that were filling in the gaps with the scholarship reductions that Montana had to go through. And so when you're getting full ride guys, you're getting full ride scholarships opening up when you're talking about guys like Jesse Sims and Dante Olson and Dalton Sneed and Jerry Louis McGee graduating. But you're also got a bunch of other guys that I'm not sure were on much of a scholarship at all their last year at Montana. So you're probably working with more like 12 and a half, 13 scholarships. And so I think that their strategy was to get the guys they could, keep shopping on the open market for transfer corners, but then also engage in spring and see what you can free up, or if you need to free up anything at all. Mm-hmm. See what you got at corner, and if you do, then maybe there is some more roster movement. I mean, a guy like Josh Egbo, he was a fourth-year junior this year, tore his ACL before the season. He graduated this last weekend, so congratulations to him for getting it done in 4 years. But I'm not sure what his status is because he was hurt, and so who knows if he comes back or not. But if he doesn't come back, then there you have another scholarship that's open for corner. So we'll see where they go. But I do expect them. Bobby Houck did mention the one transfer corner. I won't be surprised if they had a couple.
It was worth noting as well. Asher Croy is listed as a linebacker here for this group. He was obviously an outstanding running back for Bozeman, 333 yards in the state championship game, very well covered there. But coming on the defensive side, at least here initially, and the positions for a lot of these guys, I think, are somewhat fluid, right? When you talk about what a guy might ultimately develop into. But Asher Croy as a linebacker, and then also Chase Johansson from Park City, Utah. A couple of Utah kids on this list from Montana. They went down to the great state. What is Utah? What's the nickname?
Beehive State?
The Beehive State. Okay, Beehive State. That of course makes sense. Why wouldn't you want to talk about the Beehive in the midst of some of the greatest rock formations and mountains that the country has to offer? Beehive. Okay, very good. Coulter, we didn't have a ton of time there, but appreciate a little bit on this. I think it was worth giving it just a little bit more since it is, the future of these programs. So there you go, our Farmer State Bank Prep Extra segment. Hey, how do you plan to finance Christmas this year? Don't get it a high interest credit card. Okay, don't put it on there. Get a holiday loan from Farmer State Bank. Count on fast approval times, low interest, and easy payments. OAC. Holiday loan this year. Make Christmas merry from Farmer State Bank. Hour one of the books. Hour two straight ahead. Sam Herder from Hero Sports. Our buddy Sam going to talk to us about the national semifinals coming up this weekend. Right after this.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
There's a saying, opportunity never knocks twice. When you're ready to take advantage of your next opportunity, look to your local bank. Opportunity Bank of Montana. Opportunity Bank offers options for mortgage loans, small business loans, equipment financing, agriculture, and more. Our experienced team can provide solutions to help you welcome your next big opportunity. There's nothing like the feeling of progress. So let's get started today. Come see us at your local Opportunity Bank of Montana. OpportunityBank.com, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
More than 6 R.J. Raggage opened up Ranks Brothers singing quality. Those families continue to live through our family. Whether you're traveling glacier, Yellowstone geysers, or jump into Jayco and experience the best view. Only where a handshake means.
Bethel Community Church offers a free clothes closet that is open to the public each Tuesday. There are literally thousands of new and gently used items for the entire family in virtually all sizes. There's a good selection of cold weather clothing as well as casual, dress, and professional clothing, shoes, coats, and more. People are invited to take whatever they need. Call Bethel Community Church for more information, 721-2780, or visit www.bethelmissoula.com.
Have you been hurt or disabled? Are you missing time from work? Not sure what to do? I'm attorney Chris Helmer, Clark Fork Law Offices in Missoula is here to help. Our team specializes in worker compensation, personal injury, and Social Security disability. We fight for the benefits you deserve. Call Clark Fork Law 728-0168 for a free consultation or visit clarkforklaw.com. Again, 728-0168.
Top teams in the country, the Montana Grizzlies had no answers for number 8 Oregon's length and athleticism in an 81-48 loss last night. The Grizz forged a 12-12 tie with 10 minutes to go in the first half before giving up a 16-3 run. The Ducks also scored 44 points after halftime. They played for the first time recently eligible freshman and Folly Dante. He scored in double digits in the game. Kendall Manuel, a former Oregon State transfer, scored 15 points to lead Montana. Grizz senior Syed Bridget had 11 points and 8 rebounds before fouling out. The Grizz are now 4-6. They head to their final non-conference game Saturday against Omaha.
20 Big Sky Conference football players named to the Hero Sports All-American team on Monday. 9 of those athletes hail from the state of Montana. 5 Montana Grizzlies, 4 Montana State Bobcats earned recognition. Montana senior linebacker Dante Olson and junior receiver Samari Toure were first-team selections, as was Montana State junior Troy Anderson. MSU senior offensive lineman Mitch Brott, senior defensive end Bryce Stirk, and senior safety Braden Conkle all earned second-team honors, as did Montana sophomore safety Robbie Hauk, and senior punt returner Jerry Lou McGee and sophomore running back Marcus Knight landed on the third team.
Sam Herder, Hero Sports. He knows a thing or two about FCS football. North Dakota State, Montana State, Weber State, James Madison. Let's get to all of it. It's Tootell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, hour number 2. Thanks for being with us. Broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. If you missed anything in the first hour of the show, you can check it out on the podcast. The podcast available wherever you get your podcast. It is there next to Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. You can also listen live on the web, 1029ESPN.com. Go there and check us out. Listen live on the Listen Live tab. The stream is available thanks to Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. Want to take a quick moment, too, before we get to Sam, to remind everybody, tomorrow, we're going to have some fun. Tootell Nuanez is going to be broadcasting live from the Southgate Mall, okay? 4 to 6 tomorrow. Come on down. We'll be in Clock Court, okay, over there by Cafe Dulce and food court there. Come on down. Enjoy the show. We'll be giving stuff away. We're going to have prizes from AMC, Lucky's Mart, Champ Sports, Just Sports, Red Robin. Going to give that stuff away to a few lucky listeners. We're even going to stick around for an extra hour after the show. mingle, hang out, chat away, talk about, well, whatever you want. And, yeah, it's December the 20th. You got to get your last-minute shopping done, or maybe, in my case, my first-minute shopping done for Christmas. Pretty convenient location to go ahead and get that done. So come on down, hang out with Coulter and I tomorrow. We'll do the show from Southgate Mall from 4 to 6 and really 4 to 7 tomorrow evening. So we'll do that. We go down to the Range Brothers RV phone line. We welcome in from Hero Sports, covers the FCS nationally for Hero Sports, Sam Herder. Hi, Sam. How are you, man?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me back on the show.
Well, we're certainly happy to have you back. It's that time of year, is it not? A fun weekend coming up with two national semifinal games this weekend. Let's start with the one most pertinent to everybody involved. You were an alum of North Dakota State, and then us here in the state of Montana. So the Cats and the Bison Saturday afternoon. You know, we spent some time off the top of the show talking about the juggernaut that is North Dakota State and going through some of the numeric history and just sort of the machine, for lack of a better word, that is North Dakota State. That said, Montana State's playing really as good as they've played in the Jeff Choate era this past month of football that they've had. They're a senior-laden club. When you look at this game, what do you see just in terms of the matchup?
Yeah, and I've written about this and I've talked about this, before earlier this week. But to me, like you said, the Bobcats are playing their best football of the season and their best football in quite some time. And NDSU, offensively, these last three games, hasn't been as explosive, hasn't been executing at the high level that they were in September and October. So I think you're seeing, a team that's trending up in a big way going against a team that is trending down a little bit. And, when NDSU is trending down, that still means they're a pretty dang good football team. I just don't know if they, it seems at least offensively they may have hit their peak, maybe in September and early October. Now, does that all equal out to where Montana State can get a win on Saturday? I still lean the Bison a little bit. I think it is going to be a battle. But I think, the way NDSU is playing offensively, I think Montana State can certainly take advantage of that. The big thing for me, though, is defensively. On that defensive line for Montana State, they're going to have to go toe-to-toe with NDSU and match their physicality and do it for all four quarters. And if they can do that, offensively, if Tucker Rovig, if he can kind of keep on playing like he's playing and not make any mistakes and make the throws he's supposed to make, I think it's going to be a battle that goes into, the final minutes of.
I'm sure you've answered this question many times this year, this week, and throughout the last several years, but as a guy that's covered NDSU as long as you have, what are the key factors? We talked about all the different things that we thought go into the creation and sustaining of a dynasty, but in your mind, what has made NDSU so unbeatable the last decade?
Yeah, and I've been fortunate that I've probably have covered 75% of NDSU's home playoff games, and then all their games in Frisco, Texas. I'll be there Saturday. I wasn't able to cover, in person NDSU's first two playoff games of this season, but I'll be there on Saturday. But I've seen this team up close and personal, and being able to cover them in person. And I think, with NDSU, a lot of people think that you have to match the physicality, and that is true. If you can't, match that physicality and go toe to toe with NDSU in the trenches, it's going to be a long day. But it's very, very hard to out Bison. And that's why I think it's so important for Montana State to have their passing attack starting to get going, because it's hard to line up with the Bison and then just run. You look at all the teams that have given any trouble, in past years, going back to 2016 when James Madison beat North Dakota State in the semifinals. Yes, the first half it was James Madison punching NDSU in the mouth with Flint Abdullah, but NDSU responded, and the big difference in that game was Brian Shore's ability to escape pressure, create some magic with his legs, and hit some receivers down the field. You look at Eastern Washington back in 2016. They spread NDSU out and they passed the ball all over the field. You look at South Dakota State when they beat NDSU in 2016 and 2017. I believe it was. Yes, they matched NDSU physically, but they spread that defense out and they had a mobile quarterback in Taryn Christian. So I think the keys to beat NDSU is, yes, you have to match their physicality, but you can't just go in there thinking we're going to out-Bison the Bison and win. I mean, number 11 Iowa couldn't even do that a couple of years ago. They couldn't out-Bison the Bison. So I think you have to have a lot of explosive athletes offensively, and you have to have a defense that can go toe-to-toe with NDSU physically.
You know, Coulter says all the time, by the way, Sam Herder joining us from Hero Sports, that essentially what you just said. I mean, you can't out-Bison the Bison. The only way to beat them is by doing what they don't do. You have to have a different style, a different kind of makeup to what they have.
Mm-hmm.
Does Montana State, though, is a running football team and a team that wants to play tough, hard-nosed defense. Now, on the defensive side, we'll see. You know, like you said, I mean, at some point, you just got to get in there and see if you can match up physically. And maybe you have a couple of schemes. I mean, Illinois State, you know, had kind of a rover coming on the backside to chase down running plays that were going sideline to sideline and that kind of thing. So you can do that. But Montana State, even though they're a running team, their style of running is so unique and so different from what we've seen in a lot of plays, and very different than just running counter and power, you know, all day long between the tackles. So is that something that differentiates this team, and you think that they could, you know, be successful with?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I agree with what you're saying. I said it last that, you know, within Illinois State's one-dimensional offense, you know, they're one-dimensional in their running game, where it's basically hand the ball off to James Robinson, left, right, or up the middle.
Right.
Montana State, like I'm sure you guys have touched on quite a bit, you know, they just have so many different guys that can either take the direct snap or take a jet sweep, or just, you know, have the kind of the traditional shotgun formation with Isaiah Fonse, you know, taking the carry. So, you know, I do think with those wrinkles and having a diverse way of running the ball certainly helps Montana State. You kind of have to do something like that usually to get some kind of success going up against NDSU. I know way back in, I think it was 2014, South Dakota State was a heavy running team with Zach Zenner, and they kept on doing that in the playoffs, in the second round of the playoffs back in 2014. But instead of just handing the ball off to Zach Zenner, you know, they put him in the Wildcat formation. So it was a little bit of a different look, and that was Zach Zenner's best career day versus. So I think, you know, if you are going to find success running the ball against NDSU, and, you know, their run defense is still really, really good, but it's probably not as dominant as it has been in past years. You know, so I think there is still, you know, some success to have there against NDSU's rushing defense. And one way to do it is, you know, like I said, match up with them physically, but also have a guy like Travis Johnson where, you know, he can bounce things to the outside and just kind of keep that defensive line and defensive backs a little bit off balance.
You touched on this, Sam, when you talked about the sort of trend, particularly offensively, of North Dakota State. But we look at this, we see 14-0, and we go, okay, here we go again. You know, it's just the Bison doing what they do. And then you see it pops up 9-3 last week. You go, okay, but that's a little bit of an anomaly. I mean, they scored 37 against Nichols, but just 21 2 weeks ago against Southern Illinois in a victory. And you said, you know, this team maybe was playing his best offense in September, October, and not now, and maybe not peaking in that way. Is how much of that is a function of, hey, you know what, you're playing better teams and really strong defenses down the stretch, especially in the playoffs, and how much of that do you think is really maybe, I don't know, I don't know. Is it complacency? What would it be? What do you think it is when you look at the offense and maybe not having some of the performances that they had earlier in the year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does have to do some with the defense they've played. The defenses they've played these last three games. Southern Illinois made pretty drastic improvements defensively. NDSU did score 30-some points against Nichols, but for three quarters there, you know, they just couldn't get anything going. And then last, you know, I think it was Illinois State just having a really good game plan going into it. I also think there was a certain you know, credit to Illinois State's defense, of course, but I also think NDSU got a little safe with their play calling, got conservative just because they knew, you know, let's not do anything risky. Let's not, you know, have a fumble or a bad snap or you know, have Trey Lance get picked off for the first time this game. But, you know, it might be one of those things too where, you know, teams just maybe have figured NDSU out a little bit as well, and maybe they found some things that scheme up. Illinois State certainly did that with kind of, you know, jamming up the middle and sending a DB or an outside linebacker out to the edge. So it might be one of those things as well where it's a first-year offensive coordinator with the Bison, it's a first-year starting quarterback. So, you know, maybe, you know, after having an electric start to the season, you know, maybe they're showing some things on film that teams are taking advantage of, and NDSU hasn't, you know, doesn't have the ability to maybe make those in-game adjustments. like they do, or like they did when they had a 50-year senior in Easton Stick. So it might be a number of things, but I do think you have to give credit to the defense they face. It just seems like, maybe they're not executing some of their game plan as well as they did earlier in the season, and they're not as explosive. The offensive line isn't getting as big of a push as they usually do. They're having some open throws that Trey Lance has missed. So things just aren't clicking like they used to be at the start of the season, but it still is a pretty dang good offense. It's not like they're, it's not like, throwing a bunch of red flags out there when it comes to any offense. They're still a pretty quality offense. It just seems that they just haven't been clicking like they have.
The physicality has always been a huge storyline with NDSU, the offensive and defensive lines. We know about the discipline, the strength and power. One thing that I thought was really underrated, especially about this most recent group of seniors, was the athleticism they had at the skill positions. I mean, Lance Dunn and Bruce Anderson were two of the fastest running backs that I covered at the FCS level. And Darius Shepard, I mean, he's returned punts in games for the Green Bay Packers this year. How does NDSU, if they have, do they have that same athleticism, or have they found replacements for those guys in terms of guys that can hit home runs like those previous skill guys used to be able to?
Yeah, it is interesting. A lot of their home run plays have actually come through, the passing attack this year. They do have one home run hitter in the backfield, and that's Ty Brooks. They have a younger guy, Kobe Johnson, that can hit some home runs, but a lot of their explosive plays have come in the passing game with a guy like Christian Watson or Phoenix Rose. So they do have those playmakers. They're just a little bit younger and maybe can't do it, as consistently as fifth-year seniors like or fourth-year senior like Bruce Anderson last year, or fifth-year senior like Lance Dunn. But that's kind of a great point with NDSU is maybe people from a distance just think that NDSU they just have a bunch of okay athletes that are really well disciplined and they're in the right system and they play hard and that's why they're so successful. But I don't think sometimes people give NDSU enough credit for how athletic they are. Like I said, right away in the segment, I've covered a majority of the playoff games in the Fargo Dome, and a lot of times when a team from the SoCon or the OVC or the Southland, kind of the thing is, well, you haven't seen a team with speed like this. You haven't seen Southern speed like this all season. And NDSU's defense always is able to match that speed. And I mean, they have a guy like Jabril Cox, who's the next level athlete. They have a guy like Derek Tuska, who's a freak of an athlete on the defensive line. I mentioned Christian Watson. He's probably the most athletic kind of guy they've had at the wide receiver position in quite some time. I mean, Trey Lance was getting recruiting interest from the Big Ten to play outside linebacker. So he's a tremendous athlete at the quarterback position. So yes, NDSU, they get those diamonds in the rough. They get guys that do fit their system, but they have some pretty good athletes on this team as well. And I think with this year's team, they're just a little bit younger, so they have that ability to hit that big play. They're just maybe not doing it as consistently, especially these last couple of games.
Sam Herder joining us. He covers the FCS nationally for Hero Sports. And Sam, let's jump over to the other semifinal as Weber State heads on the road to Harrisonburg, Virginia to take on James Madison. And James Madison, has, with the exception of the 1 year they kind of won the national championship, has been sort of the oh yeah, they're also really good. They're the next best team in the FCS. But I feel like people are kind of sleeping on James Madison this year because of NDSU, which is fine. But their one loss is on the road to West Virginia in week 1, a game that they lost by 7 points. They played the Mountaineers of the Big 12 to a 20-13 football game. They had one other game that went to overtime against ranked Stony Brook, 43-28. Other than that, they haven't played a game closer than 14 points, and they are undefeated against FCS competition this year. This is an unbelievable team. They talk about athleticism, speed, all that kind of stuff. And then Weber State, coming out of the Big Sky Conference, we've seen Weber State, throughout the course of the season, how good they have been. And especially the strength and physicality of their defensive line and what they like to do and the way Jay Hill kind of gets that team going. What do you see against two teams who are going to be wearing a lot of purple here this weekend?
Yeah, that's right. I want to touch on that James Madison thing real quick because, I do feel that some people still don't realize how good this team is. But Brian
Absolutely.
and I saw it way back. Brian and I saw it way back in the preseason where we, in our preseason top 25 poll, we had James Madison number 1 and North Dakota State number 2, and the reaction to that was surprising. It was a lot of people saying, in what world can James Madison be preseason ranked number 1? Brian and I were kind of scratching our heads going, people not realize how good this team is going to be. And, what do you know? They are have been number 2 all season long. Arguably, that they are a better team than North Dakota State this year. We don't know that for sure, but James Madison has kind of been the popular pick in brackets. I see a lot of people picking the Dukes. But I do still think there are people out there that maybe don't realize how good James Madison is. And, I flipped my national title favorite to JMU just recently. Going into the playoffs, I had NDSU number 1. Now I have JMU number 1. There are still some people coming at me saying, how can you not have NDSU number 1? So I don't know. It's one of those things where maybe it's, the CAA, their games aren't broadcasted on that great of a platform, and people maybe haven't seen James Madison in action this year, but this team is legit, and I think people will see it this weekend. And they're also facing another team in Weber State that might be overlooked too a little bit nationally, just because the Wildcats, there's nothing flashy about them. I've noticed that on a lot of All-American teams, they only have 1, 2, maybe 0 players. On our All-American team, we had a few Weber State players, but they don't have that, maybe that one flashy guy, that makes people, really excited, and they don't maybe have that style of play that makes people, really excited to watch them play or something like that. But they're just another team that, maybe people don't realize how good they are just because they do play out in Utah, and maybe that style of play, isn't exciting where people want to tune in and watch Weber State week in and week out.
Last thing for you then, Sam. You tell us what's going to happen, okay? You're the expert, okay? You do the thing. You got North Dakota State, Montana State, and Fargo, and then James Madison, Weber State, and Harrisonburg. What do you think happens? I think everybody expects, in general, it to be NDSU versus James Madison in Frisco, Texas. You don't need to do anything surprising and go against it, but in terms of just the games themselves, how you think they're going to go, what do you got?
Yeah, I do feel a lot more confident that James Madison is going to win. I'm more confident in that than NDSU winning, but I do still think the Bison and the Dukes are going to get wins here. The Montana State NDSU game, I think, is going to be a battle. I have NDSU winning by a few points there. James Madison, I have winning by a couple of scores against Weber State. I just don't see how the Wildcats are going to score enough points to win this game against James Madison, and I think it's going to be one of those things where it's 7-3, and then 10-3, and then 10-10 maybe. But eventually, it seems like Weber State's defense is going to be on the field for quite some time, just because I don't see their offense being able to sustain long drives against the James Madison defense. So I think eventually the Dukes are going to pull away and win a game that looks like 24-10. So I've ever since last year's national title game ended, I always thought that JMU and NDSU were on a collision course for Frisco, Texas, and I think we're going to see that once the Saturday games are wrapped up.
He's Sam Herder. He writes for Hero Sports. You can follow him on Twitter at Sam Herder FCS. Go read his stuff at herosports.com. Sam, thanks so much, man. Great stuff. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you once again.
You got it. Sam Herder, boys and girls, giving you all the information you need. We step away from football for a moment, and we get into some basketball. The Grizzlies went to Oregon, played their last road game against the high major team here in this non-conference season. It didn't go great for the Grizzlies. 81-48, the final against the Ducks last night. They'll finish out their non-conference schedule against Omaha before opening their Big Sky Conference slate on Saturday night against Northern Arizona. We were going to give away tickets to that game, by the way, right after this, so stay with us. Hey, if you're a normal human being, you got a lot of shopping still out there in front of you. You haven't gotten it done. In many cases, you haven't even gotten started. Here's what you do, okay? Go to Shine Auto Detailing and get a gift card, okay? From hunters to sports fans to soccer moms, everyone loves a fresh ride and a protected ride. So right now, online, gift certificates are on sale. You save $25 off every $100 card that you get. Do something cool for your spouse, something new. Get them a Shine Auto Detailing gift card. Save $25 ahead, and they are delivered instant, just like that. Done deal. ShineAutoDetailing.net. Click gift card. Again, ShineAutoDetailing.net. The offer expires midnight, November 24th.
At Florence Coffee Company, it's time to treat yourself with one of our limited-time holiday favorites. Taste the cookies in the kitchen with our gingerbread man latte, or tap into our creamy maple come to any Florence Coffee location or go to florencecoffeecode.com.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Down Pump, ooh, pump it up.
Hey, what a great idea. I'll stop by Town Pump and pick up some Pepsi and Mountain Dew to bring home to the family. 1 liters are buy two, get one free. And 12-pack Pepsi products are only $4.99. Town Pump, quick, easy, and right down the road.
Down Pump, right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
Christmas gift and spicy. 'Tis the season for seasoning with fresh packs from Alpine Touch. 4-spice pack includes 4 Big Mountain flavors for just $19.99. Go to alpinetouch.com right now for gifts sure to keep mouths watering year round. If you put in the code ESPN at checkout, you'll get a free bag of Alpine Touch sunflower seeds. From gift packs to gift cards to the Grand Slam package, Alpine Touch makes the perfect gift for anyone on your list. Go to alpinetouch.com right now to order Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
Sometimes it's stressful juggling all your responsibilities on the weekends. You know you need to do your chores. You know you want to spend time with your family. But really, you just want to watch football all day. Paradise Falls is the perfect option for a family-friendly place to hang out and still have a chance to catch all the games. Open 7 a.m. till midnight and offering breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Paradise Falls has 30 big-screen TVs, ESPN 3 capabilities, and much, much more. Swing on by Paradise Falls on Brook Street anytime you're in the mood for some food or some football. Paradise Falls, 3621 Brook Street, Missoula's coolest hotspot.
This is Tom Skerritt for the program. Each year, nearly 2 million children die from preventable diseases. Each day, 30,000 people die from hunger. 500 each hour are children. The Borgen Project is turning this around. We need your help. To learn more, go to borgenproject.org. The BORGEN project.org.
Good afternoon. Yes, evening at this point. Tootell, Nuanez. Here's some sports news for you. Sorry, what?
Pitch black.
Pitch black. Yeah, it's darkness. It's evening. Playing against one of the top teams in the country, the Montana Grizzlies had no answers for number 8 Oregon's length and athleticism in an 81-48 loss last night in Eugene. The Grizz forged a 12-12 tie in the first 10 minutes before giving up a 16-3 run. The Ducks scored 44 points after halftime alone as 5 Oregon Duck players, including recently eligible freshman and Folly Dante, scored in double figures. He's a 5-star recruit. He was, very good. Kendall Manuel, he's an Oregon State transfer from Billings. He scored 15 points to lead Montana. Grizz senior Syed Bridget had 11 points and 8 rebounds before fouling out. UM is 4-6, but heading into their final non-conference game, the Saturday matchup at Omaha.
Bear with me while I try to find some recent ones. We did Hero Sports update for All-Americans. They had 5 Montana Grizzlies and 4 Montana State Bobcats on the team. The FCS Stats All-American team came out. FCS Stats, the preeminent coverer of FCS football. Samori Torre also landed on the first team, as did Dante Olson for the Montana Grizzlies, and a slew of other players from the Big Sky Conference.
Montana State, they wrap up their non-conference schedule tonight against Cal State Bakerfield in men's basketball. They're 6-4. The Roadrunners are 4-8.
Take this job. Ain't working here no more. Woman done left, took all the reason I was working.
I think the Grizz long snapper
Matt
O'Donohue was on the first team for the Stats.
He was
All-American team on the special team side of all the All-American picks. Mitch brought a second teamer for Montana State for Stats.
Yep. Case Cookus from Northern Arizona, Trey Lance from North Dakota State, who we just heard from on this show, and then our California correspondent, Kevin Thompson from Sac State.
KT.
All 3 of them shared first-team All-American honors, so they just had an or They said there was no defining quarterback, just those three, and then whoever you want to say is second team, and whoever you want to say is third team.
You know what? I respect that. I like that. It's Tootell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, and online at kurtzpolaris.com. Why it's got to be, why you just have to have the first team, second team, third team. Like, I understand that. Okay, it's fine. But, I mean, it like the All-Star game, was it last year or 2 years ago, whatever it was, that Klay Thompson, or it was the All-Pro team, it was the NBA, like All-NBA team, that he wasn't on the list because you have to have centers or whatever. It's just dumb. It actually undercuts the legitimacy of the team itself.
Like
because everyone knows.
Right, Rudy Gobert was All-NBA and Klay Thompson was.
Right. I mean, it just no, it can't be the case.
And it cost Klay Thompson a bunch of money.
But yes, it did. Save Golden State some cash. But the idea that you have, these three guys, and it doesn't have to be this guy, but just in general, Case Cook is Kevin Thompson and Trey Lance, that one of those guys is third team. It's just no. I mean, it's just crazy to say that, and it shouldn't be that way. So I'm okay with it. Doesn't bother me.
Bryce Stirk, Montana State on the second team as well. And like you mentioned, Mitch Brock on the second team, too. And I don't know. It's an interesting conversation to be had about the flash that you play with, the way the stats are kept. There's just a whole bunch of things that go into all this stuff that sort of frustrates me. I mean, like, how about Weber State? Like, Weber State's in the Final Four. They're the 3-time defending Big Sky champion. Jonah Williams is the co-MVP of the Big Sky Conference. And he can't get any higher than second-team All-American? Like, how's he not a first-team All-American, Like, but he might not even be the best end on his team with Adam Rodriguez. I don't know. A lot of his stuff is a little bit arbitrary. But it's fun for the kids, and 100 players named to the Stats FCS All-American team. So to be named one of the top 100 players in the country at this level of football, pretty cool for those guys.
It is pretty cool. Let's talk a little bit of basketball, shall we, Coulter? The Montana Grizzlies went to Oregon. This is their 5th road game against a high major team this season.
4th, right?
No.
Arkansas, Washington, Stanford, and Oregon.
And New Mexico.
That's not a high major. They got good basketball.
Yeah, I mean, they're a mountain. You're right. They're not a high major team. I think of them as a high major program.
David just made a good point in our ears, though. At this point, the Mountain West is better than the Pac-12 at basketball.
Well, yeah, I mean, fair enough.
I mean, Utah State was this what were they seeded last year? They were seeded higher than any team in the Pac-12.
They're ranked 17th in the nation. I don't know where they're at now, but
they were an 8 seed last year.
Okay, 8 seed last year. But in any case, Coulter, let's talk about the Grizzlies. And then they're going to play at Omaha, another really good team on the road to finish up the non-conference. But the Grizzlies have struggled this season. They're 4-6 right now. We expected them to be 5-5. They had a really bad loss to Montana Tech in like their 3rd game of the season, whatever it was. But we expected basically losses, on when you talk about going to the places they've been at Washington and Oregon and so on. They looked actually maybe the best they've looked this season in the first half of their very first game at Stanford. And it was, I think, a 2-point game at halftime. In that one, they led through a good portion of that first half. And then it kind of got away from them at the end. And they had a 5 or 6 minute stretch in that game where they just completely just gave it away. But, it's a very young team. I think they started 3 true freshmen in that basketball game against Stanford. And you thought, wow, okay. I mean, like, yeah, it's Stanford. Stanford's not good in the Pac-12, but it's still Stanford. And this is a very young team that had never played together before, and in a lot of cases were playing for the very first time Division I basketball. And you go, okay, so where you at? And then last night against Oregon, it looked pretty good early on, and then it really fell apart. It fell apart. Oregon is so much better. It definitely
fell apart, man. Oregon scored 44 points in the second half. Montana scored 48 points total. They fell apart.
I mean, but here's my thing is I don't know that they fell apart. I think that Oregon is, I mean, what changed in that game when it was 12-12? And Foley Dante played for the first time in his life. He walks on the floor and you go, oh, that's what a 5-star kid looks like. And he came in and just the first basket he made, he was actually laughing. Like, because it was just so clear how much better of a basketball player, better of a physical human for the sport of basketball he is than everybody else, including on his own team, but particularly overmatching anybody that Montana could ever throw at him, whether it's Jared Samuelson or Mac Anderson. I mean, there's just nothing you can do, okay? So that's one thing. The other thing, though, is this Montana team is incredibly young. They've tweaked the lineups at times. Timmy Falls, about midway through this non-conference schedule, got put into the starting lineup, and I think that has helped a little bit. But they have struggled, and they look like what they are, which is an extraordinarily young team. I mean, they have an incredibly talented, a first-team all-conference talent in Saeed Pridgett, and they have, Kendall Manuel, who's a good, particularly offensive role-playing guard. But you got, Kyle Owens, who is, an outstanding athlete, 6'8" freshman, 210 pounds, looks, very developed, very mature physically for a basketball player. Josh Vasquez, who's very small, but is, tremendously skilled, getting his first time really playing. And the return of Jared Samuelson, as we talked about, but also Derek Carter Hollinger, who's, kind of a slash forward type of player. And these guys are playing right now, and they look like they're freshmen. I mean, they look like what they are. They don't look necessarily better than that. And I remember when Timmy Falls played. Remember his first half of his freshman season, and you're like, and I thought this kid was supposed to be good, and he came in with and he was not good. He was bad. And then sort of the switch flipped to a certain extent. And all of a sudden, he had the one game, maybe it was that North Dakota game, where he just all of a sudden kind of took over for a stretch. You go, oh, wow, there it is. That's what everybody's been talking about. Oh, was it Irvine? Okay. And you go, this is all of a sudden what you see here. And that hasn't happened for this team yet. And by the way, it's not just one freshman. It's three or more on this club right now. And it's going to be interesting, man, because as they head into the non-conference schedule, it is, if they end up being, either 5-6 or 4-7 after the Omaha, we know in the Big Sky Conference none of that stuff really matters. What matters is Big Sky play. But this team has a lot of work to do in terms of getting themselves to a place where they're playing, fluid team basketball, hitting all their marks defensively, and really integrating together, because this still looks like a team that just doesn't have a ton of continuity.
I mean, you hesitate to be really hard on a team when they did lose the most successful senior class in school history. They're trying to implement all these new guys, not just the freshmen, but half the roster is new. It wasn't just the four seniors that they lost. Donovan Dorsey, turns out, was basically a senior last year because he did not return to the program. And you just have a bunch of guys that just are trying to find their way individually and collectively. But like I said all year, the record at this point, it's only one game worse than what you thought it would be. The stain in the Montana Tech upset they went through. Sure. But what I'm seeing is just disjointed and not fun to watch basketball. Mm-hmm. And it's all the way across the roster. I think that Saeed Pridgett is very frustrated. I think he's trying to do too much. I think that sometimes he's taken over in ways that he did last year, but I also think that he's really experiencing what it's like to be the dude. Last year, he had a lot of one-on-one coverage and a lot of open driving lanes because teams were denying DeMarco the ball, or were denying Bobby Moorhead on the perimeter, or are concerned about Maud Rory and Michael Ogine. So Pridgett, it's definitely a work in progress. But it's not just as if he's just taking the ball and put his head down and going to the rim. He's been trying to get guys involved, but he's been trying to do it. He's getting too fancy sometimes. You can just tell just looking at him, as a guy we've watched for 4 years now, that he's just frustrated. Well, I think that the number one criticism is the wrong word. The number one concern I would have if I was Montana, because again, there was no real world that you were going to beat any of those Power 5 or top level conference teams that you play on the road. It just wasn't going to happen. But Montana hit a spat where things started going the wrong way for them against Stanford. And I can't think of another time yet this year where they've hit a tough stretch and then rallied beyond it. when it's going well, it's going well, and it pretty much went well against Coppin State. It pretty much went well against Texas Southern. It pretty much went well against North Dakota. And like even against Montana State Northern, they just looked all out of sorts, and they needed one little late run to pull away, but it was not as if they dispatched of Northern, and Northern is a very middle of the road, and that is maybe even being too complimentary. I mean, they're a bottom of the Frontier Conference level team. So to me, if I was Travis DeCuire, and he said this on the radio last night, he said, we are not mature enough to handle adversity, period. Every time adversity hits, we fold, period. And I think that would be the biggest concern I would have if I was these coaches, is they just have to teach these guys to grow up. Like when it gets hard, you got to push through it, because in basketball, there's going to be a time when you come out of a media timeout and the other team is into a different defense, or they made an adjustment, or they're going to trap you in the corner, or they're going to double-side Pridget on the block just for a minute. And if you let it make you disintegrate and you let it make you stop talking on defense and stop moving the ball on offense, which is what I've seen consistently throughout this non-conference, it makes for an ugly style of basketball. And when we're watching it, you know this, anybody that's played in a basketball game, when it gets disjointed like that, those weird feelings of like resentment is not the right way to say it, but like all of a sudden everybody's looking at everybody. What are we doing? And even if you know that you can play together and you know that dude's the dude and Timmy Falls can make plays, when it's all disjointed, you're just looking at each other kind of cross-eyed like, who's going to do something to get this back on track? And they just have had such a hard time when they lose their rhythm, finding it again. I think that's the number one thing they have to work on. Or I guess going into conference play.
I agree with you on everything that you said. When I look at this team, I mean, I'm a little bit. My question has been, when are we going to see from the young players the flash of what the potential and the hope that they become?
That's the other thing is,
I haven't seen that.
I was texting you last night. I think it's so easy to be a prisoner of the moment, and just to think that all things in sports are just continually getting better. And that like Montana's recruiting, because of the way we have all this national exposure now, even when you're recruiting to a mid to low major conference like the Big Sky and a program like Montana, when you're getting dudes like the 3 freshmen that Travis DeCuire brought in from California, it's so easy to get affirmation about how good these guys are. Because all of a sudden, their high school coaches and their AAU coaches and all these scouts and evaluators and everybody, Montana got a steal. I saw that with Josh Vasquez all the time. I think Josh Vasquez is a good player. I think Kyle Owens is a good player. I think DJ Carter Hollinger is a good player. I think all 3 of these guys have potential. But it's so easy to buy this is the best class ever. Wait till these guys are seniors. None of these 3 guys, and I know we're only in the non-conference part of the schedule. We'll see how it goes in Big Sky Conference. None of them have been eye-opening to me like Michael Ogine was his freshman year.
Yeah.
Not even close. They don't have the poise and the mentality. And Bobby Moorhead's career had so many different chapters.
Yeah.
But when Bobby Moorhead was a freshman, he was straight up so confident. But he came into games and knocked down threes all the time. He hit 8 threes in a game. I don't see any of these guys scoring 25 points this year. But again, you can grow, you can evolve, and I expect them to. But I'm just saying, don't be a prisoner of the moment. I think this is the greatest class ever. These guys are all talented. They are. But I haven't seen that special spark like I did when we saw Michael Ogine for the first time.
Yeah, and I mean, for some guys, you can sense it with them that they've just got it. You don't get that out of this yet. But also, I think for some guys, as it was, in Timmy Fall's case, to me, they need to have that moment where they have the breakthrough, and all of a sudden that swagger comes. You know what I mean? Where they go from being, you just wonder, well, can I do it? Can I play at this level? To going, okay, I got this. I'm good to go. And not that it's been just smooth sailing from that day forward with Timmy Falls. That's not what I'm saying. But if some guys need that, and especially when you have 3 true freshmen starting and or playing big minutes for your team, it's hard for maybe any one of them to get that in a moment, to say nothing of all 3. It will be interesting to me to see what happens when Yagi Selchuk is available to this team and what he brings to it. In basketball, sometimes it is just one guy, but to watch a guy do some things in practice and look really good and physically and all that kind of stuff, you don't know until you see it play out what it's actually going to be. I don't even know if he's a starting player for this team. I don't know. So it won't be until until you see it. But you knew that there would be growing pains. And this is a huge task for this coaching staff. I mean, this coaching staff has a ton of work to do to bring this group together. We know that they have a style of basketball that Travis and Chris want to implement, and they want them to play. But to get them to do that, to get your rotation sorted out, to figure out who has the mental, toughness to fight through adversity, to help you in a tough spot, that's all stuff that I think you can only assess while you're doing it as well. And so, this is a team that didn't have staggered graduation. You graduate 2 seniors, but you got 2 juniors, and now, whatever. It was 5 seniors out the door, all of them outstanding, and now you got, some talent, a lot of talent, and you have to figure out how to get the ship to steer now.
And college basketball, especially when you're talking about the non-blue blood, talent is only one part of the equation.
Total. Absolutely.
It takes so much for guys. College basketball, every single team runs a system. You have to fit into the system.
Yeah.
If it was just about talent, Southern Utah would win the Big Sky every year.
Yeah. Okay, let's do this, boys and girls. Just like that, the non-conference is 1 game from being over. The Montana Grizzlies, they're going to be at home December 28th against Northern Arizona. We got a 4-pack of tickets for you right now. Okay, this is go time. Big Sky Conference basketball. 329-1899. Caller number 2. 329-1899. You got a 4-pack of tickets to the Saturday, the 28th, home opening Big Sky Conference game against Northern Arizona. It's a 7 p.m. Opening tip there at Dahlberg Arena. We got the tickets for you. You can have them right now, 329-1899. We'll take a break. On the other side, we'll wrap this thing up and get you set for a Friday show from the mall. Hey, if you're a normal human being, you have last-minute shopping to do, you're freaking out, you're running out of ideas, here's the most simple thing you can do. Get a gift card to Shine Auto Detailing. From hunters and sports fans to soccer moms, everyone loves a nice, new, fresh ride. Right now, online gift certificates are on sale, $25 off of every $100 gift card. Do something nice for your spouse. How about that? Get a Shine Auto Detailing gift card. Save $25. They're delivered instantly. ShineAutoDetailing.net online. ShineAutoDetailing.net.
'Tis the season for a festive holiday feast at the Montana Club with mouth-watering dishes like our cranberry brie walnut tarts and pork Diane, or savor our Chardonnay salmon or blackened shrimp fillet. Be sure to wrap up your celebration with our decadent pecan rum raisin cake, all available for a limited time only through January 5th. See the full menu at montanaclub.com. Happy holidays from all of us at the Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters. And you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, locally owned, with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box store. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit 6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
Hi there. It's Flash Swap Tire. Well, more like Flash Swap alignment, brake, knock, wheel, and tire. Now, some tire places don't offer. They only sell tires. And we're not sure if they see this because all those services are actually like shopping. That's why we offer more tires to help you. Stop by and learn what the FlashSwap.com. Flash Swap Tire. Doing the right thing.
On Russell, across from the fairground.
Hey, Colter Nuanez from Tootell, Nuanez. Need a great place for a Christmas gift. They got a spot for you. Aspen Sound in Missoula. They got all the hookups for everything you could possibly need for your vehicles. What are some of the sweet things you got going on down there, Tom?
Thanks, Colter. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto have sure been popular this year. Safety and convenience. You can do text messaging, maps, pretty much everything you need. Phone calls, music, everything right from the touch of your radio. We also have remote car starters, as you know, and window tint. Lots of goodies at a great price. Come on down and see us.
Have you been in an accident and have no idea what to do? I'm here with Catherine from the Advocates Injury Attorneys.
Unfortunately, people are injured in accidents every day, and dealing with the insurance company can add even more pain to an already bad situation. That is where hiring the advocates can help. Let us guide you through the process and take on the hassles for you so you can
If you've been injured in an accident, give the Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at MontanaAdvocates.com. The Advocates.
How about some picks against the spread? It's Tootell, Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. If you missed anything in the show, check it out on the podcast. The podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. Tootell Nuanez podcast, rate it, review it, subscribe, all that. It's available thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. Also, the FCS Speculators, a betting podcast. Second to the last one. Semifinals, the FCS playoffs. It's out now, too, so you can go listen to that and listen to a couple of guys who know what's going on. By the way, not us. Other guy, expert on the podcast there. You can do that. Hey, tomorrow, I want to remind you, tomorrow, okay? Come on down and join us at the Southgate Mall. We're going to be at the mall doing the show from 4 to 6 over by the clock area and the clock court, food court area. Come on by, watch us in action. Hang out for a while. We're going to stick around even after the show and hang out with you till about 7 o'clock. We're going to give away a bunch of prizes, including some stuff from AMC Theaters, Lucky's Market, Champ Sports, Just Sports, and Red Robin, to name a few. So go ahead and come on down to the Southgate Mall. You got last-minute shopping to do, obviously. It's the 20th of December. Time is running short. Go down there. Hang out with us on Friday night and enjoy yourself and get your Christmas list knocked off, okay? It's just that easy with Tootell and Nuanez. Coulter, time to do some picks against the spread, NFL style, thanks to our friends at Katie O'Keefe's. We're giving away a Katie O'Keefe's gift card here, Coulter.
Last one for the year.
A bar tab, the Katie O'Keefe's, $25.
Just call us now.
Call right now, 329-1899. You want to go down to Katie O'Keefe's, have yourself a couple of cold ones on us, 329-1899. You go down there, awesome spot to watch games. You got NFL games, 3 of them, triple header Saturday, plus 2 FCS semifinals, then a full Sunday slate of NFL, and then Packers-Vikings Monday night. Let's go, Coulter. I'm into this.
They got all sorts of stuff going on. They can stream anything. They got the Grizz game going on multiple TVs last night. They got it all hooked up.
Yeah. Okay. Coulter, let's go against the spread here. Take a look at what we got. I'm telling you what, these Saturday games, I am so pumped up about some of these Saturday games, particularly the Buffalo Bills and the New England Patriots. The Patriots are 11-3. The Bills are 10-4. This game is, are you ready, potentially, for the division? I mean, that's crazy, right? That New England would be playing a Week 16 football game that would have division implications. This thing should be sewn up by now. But it's not, because the Buffalo Bills are, headed to the playoffs. So the Bills are on the road, though. This is in Gillette, and the Bills are a 6.5-point underdog to Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, and the New England Patriots. Coulter, what do you think about this football game?
I think the Patriots are
terrible. Or at least very, they've looked bad and at least very susceptible.
What happened to Sonny Michel?
Right.
He was really good. Now he's like non-existent. They don't really use him at all.
They haven't. They've backed way off on his usage, and I don't know what the answer to that question is. I've had the exact same question.
And Julian Edelman looks tired.
Are you going to do what I think you're going to do?
Oh, yeah, the Bills are going to come.
Whoa! I'm amazed. I thought we were going to fight on this one. 100%.
No, dude, the Bills are good. Everybody, see
I'm with the Buffalo Bills.
This
Bills Mafia.
This American obsession with pretty boy quarterback skews everybody's evaluation of football teams at every level. Josh Allen might not be like the most accurate passer, but Josh Allen knows how to win. He's tough.
right?
I think he's leading the NFL in rushing touchdowns by a quarterback.
You find me one person who's not the greatest ever from Wyoming, and I'll show you a black hole. I mean, his thing is they're the greatest. Huh? Wyoming, the Pokes.
I mean, he's the perfect, the way he is, the way he's sort of edgy and irreverent and tough, is a perfect fit for what they do on defense. And it's the perfect fit for Buffalo.
Yeah.
I don't care if he's completing 55% of his passes.
So,
he's a winner.
Tell me this straight up. You got the Bills winning on Saturday?
I don't, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I think the Bills are legitimately good, man.
I got them 60-40 losing the game because it's still the Patriots. And the Patriots' defense, for whatever they're doing on offense, is absolute lockdown. But you know what? So is Buffalo. So this could be a 17-13 football game. And if it is that, whoever ends up with 17 and whoever ends up with 13 is almost a coin flip. But I think 6.5 is way too high, especially with what I haven't seen out of the New England offense. So I am with you on this, man. I got the Bills. All right, San Francisco, Saturday night, hosting the L.A. Rams. They're a 6.5-point favorite. I got San Francisco. I think San Francisco run away with this football game.
Really? Even with the Rams rallying a little bit?
I mean, look, the Rams got talent, but at some point you just are what you are. And I haven't seen the Rams just have not gotten it done either side of the ball. And by the way, this is more to me about San Francisco. San Francisco is in a fight for the division. First of all, they're 11-3 and they're in second place in their own division. I mean, that's remarkable. Now we know it comes down to week 17, but to keep pace with everybody else, there's 4 11-3 teams in the NFC right now. Who's good? The 1 and the 2 seed is an overwhelming advantage to have a bye and all that. They have to win this game, and I think they want to make a statement. Now, the Rams obviously are dangerous, but I think the Niners are that good. I got them by 10.
Yeah, I got New England as well as San Francisco as well as a bad matchup for the Rams. If the Rams can't run the ball, the offense doesn't work, and San Francisco's got the best defensive front in the NFC.
Okay, now we go from the best to the worst. Dallas, Philadelphia. This
Neither
game,
one, burn it down. They should give the Niners and the Seahawks both home playoff games in the playoffs and get the NFC East champs out of here.
The Dallas Cowboys, just when you think, just burn it to the ground. What did they score, like 36 last week? I mean, they actually, I don't remember.
I black out now and I see the Cowboys. I can't watch this anymore.
They were actually on fire last week, and you go, well, how does that happen?
Because they have good players?
Yeah.
They just have a terrible coach.
44 last week. Against who, David? Tell me. Against the Rams. That's right. They were 44-21 against L.A. Okay. Philadelphia, man, just has not been good. And even though this game is in Philadelphia, and even though it is in a de facto game for the division and therefore for the playoffs, I don't know that I can pick Philadelphia in this spot because at least Dallas has looked good sometimes, whereas Philadelphia hasn't looked good really at any time. Now, maybe, they're going to obviously be up for this game. In Philadelphia makes a big difference to me. Probably just take the Cowboys and -1. It's -1, by the way. It's almost a pick'em game, but I'll take Dallas to win by 2. Maybe safety 0. Maybe that's the game, and they go ahead and win. There you go. There's our picks against the spread. It's brought to us by Katie O'Keefe's over in the Stevens Center. Go. Enjoy some games. Enjoy some drinks. Congratulations. Enjoy on us. Boys and girls, see you tomorrow from the Southgate Mall. Looking forward to being down there with everybody. Come say hi. 4 to 6 tomorrow night. Good night.
Thank you for making Polaris America's best-selling off-road brand. During the Polaris Great American Thank You event, financing will flow at 3.99%, and rebates go as high as $3,500.